With the federal government just 2 days away from a partial shutdown, President Donald Trump is scheduled to meet with top congressional leaders from both parties on Monday in a high-stakes effort to find a path forward. The meeting at the White House will include House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. This comes after the president canceled a similar meeting last week with only the Democratic leaders, citing what he called their unserious and ridiculous demands. Time is running out, as government funding is set to expire after September 30th, which would trigger a shutdown at 12:01 a.m. on Wednesday. At the heart of the impasse is a short-term spending bill, known as a continuing resolution, that was passed by House Republicans and is supported by the Trump administration. However, Democrats have vowed to block the measure, setting the stage for a showdown. A major point of contention is the inclusion of a reauthorization for the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP, in the Republican-backed bill. The White House is warning that if Democrats block the spending package, the flood insurance program will lapse, creating significant disruption for millions of Americans, particularly as hurricane season continues. According to administration figures, a lapse in the program could halt approximately 1,300 property sales every day, potentially derailing 40,000 home closings in a single month. With more than 400,000 policies set to expire in October, over 250,000 households could lose their coverage if the program is not extended. The National Association of Home Builders echoed these concerns in a statement, warning that a disruption would have immediate and widespread negative impacts on property sales, home values, and consumer confidence. The group emphasized that the housing market needs stability, not another lapse in the program, which has already been extended through short-term measures more than 30 times since 2017. Beyond the housing market, a shutdown would also impact disaster recovery efforts. While FEMA currently has about $2.6 billion available to pay claims, officials warn the agency would be unable to borrow additional funds from the Treasury if a major disaster were to strike, a scenario the administration described as dangerous and avoidable. Democrats argue the Republican bill is a dirty resolution, loaded with partisan policy riders, including what they call an assault on health care that would affect Affordable Care Act subsidies. In a joint statement, Schumer and Jeffries said they are resolute in our determination to avoid a government shutdown and will meet anywhere, at any time. For his part, President Trump has accused the Democratic leaders of pushing radical left policies and has insisted they must agree to his principles before a productive meeting can occur. With the deadline looming, all eyes are on Monday's meeting to see if a last-minute deal can be reached. While lawmakers in Washington grapple with that impending deadline, new details are emerging about a past crisis at the U.S. Capitol. FBI Director Kash Patel announced Saturday that 274 plainclothes FBI agents were present during the events of January 6, 2021, but clarified their role was for crowd control after a riot had been declared. In an exclusive statement, Patel asserted that deploying agents for a crowd control mission goes against FBI standards, and accused the former FBI Director Christopher Wray of lying to Congress by not disclosing the full scope of the Bureau's presence that day. The revelation has drawn a sharp response from President Trump, who nominated Wray in 2017. In a post on Truth Social, the president said Wray has some major explaining to do and suggested the agents may have been acting as agitators and insurrectionists rather than as law enforcement. President Trump, who has pardoned or commuted the sentences of every person charged in connection with January 6th since taking office this year, called for an investigation into what he termed dirty cops and crooked politicians. It's important to note the distinction being made between plainclothes personnel and undercover operatives. The new information from Director Patel does not claim the agents were embedded to incite violence. This aligns in part with a December 2024 report from the Justice Department's Inspector General, Michael Horowitz. That report found no evidence that the FBI had undercover employees orchestrating the events. though it did acknowledge the presence of 26 paid informants, only 3 of whom were assigned by the FBI to be there. The Inspector General's report also confirmed that FBI personnel were sent to the Capitol at the request of overwhelmed Capitol Police to assist with crowd control. According to an FBI official, the 274 agent count also includes personnel who were responding to the pipe bombs discovered near the Democratic and Republican National Committee headquarters. The official stated that the first agents did not arrive at the Capitol until around 2:30 p.m., well after the riot was declared, and that many agents were not pleased with the assignment, as they are not trained for crowd control. Director Patel's main criticism of his predecessor, Ray, is a lack of transparency. Patel claims that when pressed by lawmakers under oath, Ray gave a DC answer and deflected rather than providing a clear account of the FBI's activities on January 6th. From a battle over the interpretation of past events to a new one brewing in the nation's courts, a legal challenge is taking shape over education policy. A coalition of 16 states and the District of Columbia has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration to block a new federal directive concerning K-12 sex education. The lawsuit, filed in the U.S. District Court in Oregon, is being co-led by the Attorneys General of Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington. At issue is an order from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services that prohibits what the administration calls gender ideology in lessons supported by federal funding. The states have been given a deadline of October 27th to remove all references that recognize and affirm gender identity from their sex education materials. If they fail to comply, they risk losing federal funding from 2 significant grants: the Personal Responsibility Education Program, or PREP, and the Title V Sexual Risk Avoidance Education Program, also known as SRAA. Both of these federal programs are widely used by states to teach teenagers about the prevention of pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. The states involved in the lawsuit argue that the materials targeted by the HHS order are essential components of a comprehensive and inclusive health curriculum. They maintain that the content is necessary to properly serve all students. The lawsuit represents a direct confrontation between these states and the federal government over curriculum control and the definition of appropriate educational content, with millions of dollars in federal aid hanging in the balance.